Hey there, men. Mike Yarbrough of Wolf and Iron here. Welcome back to another Truck Talk Thursday episode here on the Wolf and Iron podcast. If you're just joining us for the first time, let me just say thank you and welcome. I think you're in a great place. If you're a man looking to grow as a man, if you want to be a better father, a better husband, a better leader, a better example setter, if you're tired of the status quo of men in society today and you recognize that things need to change and that the guy that you see in the mirror every day is the only guy that you can really impact an immediate change on, well, you're in the right place. And I'm glad you're here. This is something we do on Truck Talk Thursdays, released on Thursdays, which is all about helping you become a man, as it always is. But it's just a little off-the-cuff conversation. We talk about, or I talk about whatever's on my mind. Sometimes it's entrepreneurial things. Sometimes it's stuff related to my family life. Sorry, I'm a bit distracted. I'm actually sitting in a parking lot right now, and there's an older guy going around with the stick, and he's just kind of touching the underside of cars. Like, I don't really know why, but his wife's with him, so I trust him, and he's older, so he's trusty. These are the kind of things that you get to experience with me as I talk from my truck. Before I jump into the episode, I'll just tell you guys a little bit about where I am and what I'm doing, just to give you context. So I'm in the little town of Davidson, North Carolina, and I've just come up here after Christmas in Davidson, which is a little event that we've attended first time we've been here. As Wolf and Irons, we set up a booth here. There are basically dozens and dozens of white tents set up where people are hawking their wares and talking about whatever. There's local people and doing cool stuff here. But Davidson is this quaint little like slice of America, especially downtown Davidson right by the college. And I just popped over to get a latte from Summit Coffee. And so I'm sitting in my truck and getting ready to take off and head back to the office. But that's where I'm at right now. I had to come over here to grab some stuff out of our tent before getting back into the office. And I had this thought that I want to share with you guys. The title of the podcast episode is Sexual Rabies, and that's how this topic was introduced to me by a friend just the other day. I just wanted to share this with you guys while it was on my mind, because I thought it was just a great analogy. Some of you are smarter than I am, and you can answer this question. What is rabies actually called? What's the real name for rabies? I'm assuming that you're either going, I don't know, Mike, just give it to me, or you've named it and you're patting yourself on the back. It's hydrophobia. Hydrophobia, the fear of water. And the way this works in animals, kind of like this, you can imagine a coyote. He contracts rabies, and then he goes out to get some water. He sees himself in the reflection of the stream, and it freaks him out. Doesn't know why, but he runs, takes off running. But at the same time, he's thirsty. He doesn't know what to do. So time goes on. He forgets. He gets really thirsty. He goes back. Same thing happens. He can't stand it. He wants to drink so bad, but he cannot stand to be around water. It's freaking him out. And this happens, and eventually the animal gets dehydrated. It goes crazy, and then kills people, or I don't know really what happens after that. But basically the animal goes insane, dies from dehydration. And it's a really sad way. Actually, my wife was present as we were getting told this kind of story, and she started tearing up a little bit. She's like, "Oh, poor coyote." She's just imagining like all the coyotes out there dying from dehydration. It is a sad thing. But the point I want to make is that guys who are tied up in some kind of sexual addiction are really dealing with a lot of the same things. When I talk about sexual addiction, I'm talking about primarily pornography, masturbation, that kind of stuff. And you know, what classifies an addiction versus just a really strong and bad habit. You know, maybe we can talk about that another time, but essentially it is something that is interrupting, something you don't want to do, right? But it's compulsive. You feel like you need to do it, and sometimes it's just difficult to stop yourself. And I would say that's an addiction. And obviously you can go through and determine whether or not there's a cue for it and what the trigger is, and you know, what the how you respond to it, those kinds of things, the addictive cycle. But someone who's trapped in this addictive sexual behavior, and what ends up happening is that they really long for intimacy. true intimacy with another person. That could be sexual intimacy. That could just be relational intimacy, meaning being known by that person, loved by somebody else, open to somebody else, open to just that intimate mutual caring and respect for one another. And what happens is someone who is in that kind of sexual addiction, sexual bondage kind of, well, that sounds kind of kinky. I'm probably not helping there. But in that situation, what happens is they're kind of like that coyote going to water. They want it. They really, really do. But when they get close to it, it freaks them out. And they run away. They close up, and or maybe they can't perform sexually. They want to be intimate, but because there's a closeness there that they don't experience when they go to the computer screen, it just messes their body all up, and they run away from it. And guys, you've probably heard the statistics. I don't have to quote them to you. You could basically say nearly every man you meet is either addicted to or has some frequency with pornography, masturbation, all that kind of stuff. The science is out on this and has been out for some time now. It doesn't matter what your particular religious beliefs are on it. The science is clear. This stuff messes you up. It does form addictive behaviors in the brain. It messes up your normal relationships, and you're going to have to cut ties with it. You're going to have to overcome. You're going to have to realize that these things are available and accessible in the world, and they're easy to get to at a moment's notice, and probably easy 99.9% to hide from other people, if that's what you want to do. Or even be open with it and, pretend like it's just okay. It's just how guys are. It's just how the world is, and there's nothing wrong with that. Whatever you want to say, whatever your excuse is. It's just not the case. Scientifically, guys, it's not the case. Biologically, that's not how we're wired. And if you take a moment and you assess yourself and you say, okay, Mike, yeah, I look at pornography fairly often. I wish I didn't, but it's just something I've fallen into. I got into when I was young, whatever the case is, whatever your story is. Probably not that different than most guys. But then you make another assessment. You say, am I having a hard time being connected with my wife, with my kids, just having an intimate relationship with my buddies, my pals, my bros? Do I find myself in that situation? And I don't really know why. I want to be close, but I pull away. What's that all about? Well, maybe you've got some attachment issues. Maybe there's something else going on there, but there's a good chance that if you've got pornography in your life and that's going on, that's a problem, then you're probably going to have issues in these other areas as well, and they're tied together. Now, I can tell you guys my story with pornography, but I'm going to actually just allow you to go back and listen to a previous episode. My pal Brandon McConnell and I, we did an Ask a Man episode on this. It was a while back, so you have to kind of scroll through some of the old episodes. I wish I had the episode in hand. Hopefully I'll put it in the show notes for this. If you're listening online, you can go and just click in the show notes and see that. But it's one of the earlier Ask a Man episodes where we talk about pornography. I think it's titled something like Pornography and Female Bosses, but I don't think it's related to the same thing, or maybe not. But in any case, I kind of go through my story, being exposed to it at an early age, how I think my brain just works a little differently with these things, and I'm probably not always the best case, like test case or whatever you want to call it, for how to overcome porn. But at the same time, I have a different perspective on it than I think a lot of people do. Brandon shares his story as well. And so I think it'll be helpful for you guys. I also did a podcast interview with the guy from, one of the guys from Fight the New Drug, which is basically just a pornography education awareness kind of, basically the dangers of sexual addiction, pornography, masturbation, all that kind of stuff. And what that does to the brain and how that works. So we had a great talk with that guy. You can look for Fight the New Drug. You can scroll through my feeds. That's actually not that long ago of an episode. But both of those are very informational and poignant on to the topic that we're talking about. There's also something I wanted to turn your attention to called the Conqueror series. This was actually recommended to me by another guy. And my sons and I have been going through this. Basically, it's a Vietnam vet who they do just a great job. It's all from a Christian perspective, but it's not cheesy. It's actually really good. They do a fantastic job going through. There's like a 6-week program, then there's like another 6 weeks you can add on to it or something like that. And but you can go to conquerorseries.com, I believe it is, and pick this thing up. And guys, I'll tell you what, it's awesome, just the information that you get in there. And if you can watch this with your sons or get a group of kids together, a group of young men together, because it's entertaining to some degree, because it's like the guy uses illustrations from his fighter pilot days and things like that to kind of bring into, and they do these reenactments and stuff like that. I mean, it's pretty neat for what it is. But they also talk to a lot of experts about how the brain works and the chemistry in the brain and the neuroscience behind this whole thing, and how the mind creates these pathways and how strong they are, and how sexual behavior in particular lays down not only neural pathways, but then secretes all these hormones, which has all these other interactions, and that makes it just a much more difficult thing to really catch and break. But that it can be overcome. They give you timelines on what this looks like. They give you tools and resources. It's just a great series, guys, so I definitely recommend checking it out. My point in saying this is that really just to kind of raise your awareness. I don't think there's a one-size-fits-all solution to this. You may be one of those people that can just quit, but you may also be more like the guys who try to quit, say they're going to stop. Maybe they go a couple of months without watching any porn, something happens, and boom, you're back into the cycle again. And you don't want to be there. And you can recognize in yourself, you feel better as a man. Your testosterone's higher. You just feel more connected to your family when this isn't in your life. But when the porn comes back in, then all of a sudden, you feel ashamed, this guilt comes on, and you're not living the life you want to live. So you've got to do something about this. With the Conqueror series, they do talk about joining different groups of guys, basically teaming up, having accountability and those sort of things. If you can do that, that's definitely the way to go. But in any case, I would say, guys, throw it out there as a challenge. We've got a Facebook group, and the men out there are just a great help. They're great counselors. You can go to wolfandiron.com/the group. And look, if your first post out there is, hey guys, I heard Mike's podcast about sexual rabies, and I want to stop. I want to get over my porn addiction. I want to get over my sexual addiction. I just think about sex all the time. And it's just affecting my relationships. It's affecting my brain. I'm not the man I want to be because of it. Look, if that's your first post out there, I'll tell you what, guys, that's bold. That's a bold move. And there's nothing wrong with that. And you're going to get some great support out there. And you're going to have some guys to help hold you accountable as well. Look, however it is, wherever you find your accountability, if it can be someone local, make it happen. And really begin to understand how your brain works with pornography, any kind of addictive behavior, but in this case in particular with porn, and how that's affecting your relationships. And guys, be serious about putting up a fight to end this stuff in your life. It's not going to happen by just willpower alone. You're not just going to say, well, I just don't want to look at porn anymore, and I guess I won't. Look, you've got to understand more about yourself. Unless you're one of those rare cats, like maybe myself, I've heard of other people who just decide to quit drinking or decide to quit smoking, and they just do. They've been doing it for like 30 years, and they just decide to quit and they stop. You know, they're out there. But the point is that that's not the majority of cases. And however it is that you're wired up, you need to understand what your cues are, what triggers you, what causes you to respond, why you really want to do the things that you're doing, what you're trying to accomplish by, looking at pornography. And guys, get the help you need. If you need professional counseling, do that. So look, guys, I'm for you in this. I know you can overcome these things. I hope that this kind of notion of sexual rabies sticks with you. It's kind of hard to get out of my mind after you hear that, sexual rabies. That could be a band name. Called it band name. Don't go register the domain sexualrabies.com because I want to get it and make a band out of it. It'll be awesome. Anyhow, guys, I appreciate you. I appreciate you listening to these things. I want your feedback on this. It is interesting how whenever I do an episode or something that is against pornography, and I'm bringing this topic up, I will undoubtedly have people who respond on Instagram or Facebook or whatever the case is that are so pro-porn. It's ridiculous. The guys will say, there's nothing wrong with porn. I've been watching porn my whole life. I've never had any issues with it. You know, my wife and I are into pornography, whatever the case is. Look, you just look at the science and look at the effects on your life. I can guarantee you that you're being impacted by it in a negative way. But anyhow, talk to you guys later. Take care.